Bristol, the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there any public participation at this point who wish to address us? Hearing none.
Actually, I do.
For the record, would you please state your name and your address?
My name is Sean Rest. I live at 53 Lancaster Road in Bristol. I'd like to take the opportunity to address the Development Authority because it's a little bit unique. You guys are handling the development of all of Bristol, as where the Sustainable Development Project for downtown Bristol was handled by an exclusive agency that was handling just downtown. So I'd like to ask, has anybody here considered the idea that maybe if Bristol really has to build sustainable development, that they could do it and better serve the interests of the residents and maybe do it less costly if they did it in Forestville first instead of across the street? Because Bristol's Plan of Conservation Development Survey says the main reasons why people live in Bristol is either because their family lives here or because it's close to highways. And so I'm thinking, well, geez, that would mean demand would probably be higher for housing in the Forestville area, so maybe we could build affordable housing, or if we have to, or housing near whatever, near the highway where the residents want it to be. And maybe other people would want it to. Maybe developers would be more interested in putting money forth, and it wouldn't require, I'm not going to call it a bailout, but a guarantee from the city, a guarantee type of loan, like a, yeah, we got your back kind of commitment, like the boat that we were in not too long ago. And the other part of it too is I think it would be easier to grow the economy and give the residents exactly what they want. With this development down here, it seemed like most people really wanted to have commercial development, and I think we already have some growth of commercial development over where the Route 72 extension is. If you look over in the Pine Street area, where the movie theater was, it was too big to fail, but it failed. And I think we could probably make that happen again in Bristol if we were more focused on the area and a little less focused on some place where private investment wasn't really interested in doing it. And honestly, I can't figure out for the life of me why we'd want to start across the street and not somewhere where it was less of a burden to taxpayers. And if anybody has any insight on why we would do it, it seems to me it's in reverse order, because if you look at the planning documents, we already have plans for TOD, and in Forestville too, by the train station. It's earmarked in the Forestville plan. It's also earmarked in the long-term transportation plan, I believe, for the CCMPO, if I'm not mistaken. Or it might be a different document. I'm not sure. I'm not positive. I don't have it with me. So I'm just asking to think outside the Depot Square box.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Sean.
I have a comment.
Your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Frank Kramer, 40 Crescent Drive, Bristol, Connecticut. Just, underscoring what Sean just said, it seems to me that the most obvious and clearest path to growth is where you folks have all put your thoughts and efforts is in behind this transportation hubs that are in the process of being created. We already have one. That's Route 72. As Sean had said, in a Forestville area, it seems the most obvious area to start building and attracting business, whether it be big business or small business. start growing from there. Maybe, it starts spreading, but that is the most natural soil for a seed to take purchase in, not downtown. I think the transportation pathways there are inhibited at best. Anyway, the question that I wanted to ask, it dawned upon me about 2.5, 3 years ago when the city granted the Hilton Hotel, I think it's called Doubletrees, $50,000 for window treatments. And I recall reading about the owner of that franchise. By the way, 12% is owned by the Hilton Corporation. And the man who is the owner and CEO of the Doubletrees is on his own a very wealthy individual. And I'm always amazed that we're granting $50,000 here, $80,000 there, so on and so forth, for the promise in the future of more jobs. Maybe after 10 years after the abatement has seen nighttime, more tax revenue on the grand list. But I'm just wondering if you folks have ever seen fit to actually do some kind of cost-benefit analysis on these handouts, what some people might call crony capitalism. I'm shy from using that term, but others do. And actually doing a cost-benefit analysis, or at least tracing the success or failures of this type of program. That we continuously proffer corporations that, in some instances, might need it, but in other instances, we all know that they really don't. Question. It's not rhetorical, it's actually a real question. And maybe next time we assemble here, you might have an answer for that. Because that is all about accountability, transparency, and with this administration coming in just recently, I think was all you guys talked about was transparency and the lack of opacity that you guys are striving for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion be in order to accept the minutes of the January 25th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Correspondence? Draft downtown committee schedule. Got that.
Motion to place on file.
Good second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Request for proposals for Depot Square.
Motion to place on file.
Good second.
Second.
Comments?
Yeah, you know what, I was thinking maybe we, for most of these, we can comment down to the committee reports for the downtown committee. So I guess I'll wait until we're down there. At the moment, we'll just place it on file and I'll get to it down at the bottom if that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Plan of conservation developed for downtown. Motion to place on file.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Zoning regulations for downtown. Motion to file in order.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Public disclosure, CDBG conflict of interest statements.
Motion to place on file.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mayor's Economic Development Fund, marketing budget.
Motion to place on file.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. New business by staff, downtown committee schedule for approval.
So we have the proposed downtown committee schedule in your packet. Obviously, the downtown committee is meeting now regularly to address development across the street at the Depot Square site. So we put forth a schedule, monthly meetings, basically the last Thursday of the month to mirror, kind of what's been done before. That's the last Thursday, right, Chris? Is that where we stuck with?
Yes.
Yeah, so, meetings at 5, it's appropriate for a vote now if the committee, if the group feels appropriate.
Would someone care to make a motion to approve the schedule as presented?
I'll move it.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. project for Middle Street fuel cell.
So I want to address the fuel cell project. This is something that came together quickly after we met last month. About mid-January, well, first of all, back up. We've been working on the property 894 Middle Street for some time. I guess 3 years ago now, Dawn, we received our first grant through EPA to environmentally assess that property. Brownfield, you need to know what's there and to the extent before you can start talking about cleaning up. So usually you do 3 phases of assessment work. We started phase 1 about 3 years ago. We received a grant to perform a phase 1A and a phase 2 on the property. The funding was through EPA, through the Regional Brownfields Partnership, which is a group that we're a part of down with the NVCOG now. Dawn Ledger of the staff applied for and received $120,000 about a year ago. Yeah, to start phase 3. And the phase 3, the idea is we're going to come out of the phase 3 with real numbers about what it will take to clean that site up to the appropriate numbers as designated by DEEP, Connecticut DEEP, and EPA. So we're basically finishing up our phase 3 work with the idea of going back to the state for more grant funds to clean it up. However, in the midst of all this, we want to talk about what a redevelopment on the site could look like. One potential option that we looked at was alternative energy on the site. Because it's a former scrapyard, metal scrapyard, the contamination there is significant in some places. The construction and operation of certain types of alternative energy would lead you to a more limited cleanup on certain parts of the site, just because human exposure is next to nothing on those types of projects. We originally looked at the possibility of a solar farm on the site. The site, believe it or not, is too small. It's about 14 acres, but it's still too small for a viable, from a financial perspective, a viable solar project. You really need to have a pretty big project to make those things work. We have a contact in the fuel cell industry, so we wanted to learn a little bit more about fuel cells, how they work, if they could work at that site, and if it would be worth pursuing. So we contacted a company called Fuel Cell Energy, and it was good timing. Well, first of all, our contact is also a member of the Mayor's Task Force on Energy Consumption, and she's also a former member of our Brownfields group, this BPRC, Brownfield Property Renewal Corporation. When we contacted them in mid-January, we learned, A, the site would be ideal for a fuel cell project. B, the state at the moment has an RFP, or the state's about to put out an RFP seeking new renewable energy projects, right? The state, I think, has some marks that it needs to hit as far as how much renewable energy is produced here in Connecticut. So it needs more projects. Fuel Cell Energy is interested in partnering with us, the city, on a proposal to that. So funding would become available. The funding would be, I think, made available to Fuel Cell Energy to build out a renewable energy development at the site. In this case, 1 or 2 fuel cells to provide energy back to the grid and then potentially to folks in the area, to the different businesses in the area. The way the site is sort of oriented, there's a back corner of the site that's very difficult to develop on because there's a transmission line easement that runs right through it, right through this back corner. You can only do a certain limited number of types of things on that back corner. We thought that might be an ideal space for a fuel cell. Leaving the rest of the property, including the valuable frontage on Middle Street, open for development, right, once the property is ultimately cleaned. What better, cooler marketing angle, right, to market the front of the property and say, hey, literally, you have a fuel cell in your backyard that you can tap into for clean, uninterrupted power. So we brought that was in late January. We finally had a meeting with the mayor. He loved the idea. The state of Connecticut likes the idea. So the RFP, I said, is coming out. So we had to sort of act quickly. So we brought the project to first the Board of Finance. and then to the city council. It was on, the last city council meeting. We did a presentation. The council approved, approved nothing more than the city teaming up with Fuel Cell to submit an application for this RFP. Nothing is set in stone yet. It's just, let's just try this out and see what happens. Potentially there's cleanup funds that we can garner from this as part of this project, at least for the back piece of the property. And then of course, Fuel Cell Energy could, receive funds to help, fund the build out and the ultimate connection of the project. So that's where we're at. Fuel Cell has not submitted the RFP yet. There are plenty of things to work out on our side and Fuel Cell Energy's side, leases and how the partnership would work, etc. But we need to secure those approvals at Board of Finance and City Council to at least give this a shot and see where it goes, see where it takes us. There's no hard commitment yet on either side really for this. We're exploring the project. We actually meet tomorrow, so we'll sort of see where it goes. But that's the history of the project.
Does this require the BDA to do anything for ratification of what you've done since it falls under our purview?
Not. I've been advised no. It's just I'm keeping you guys up to date. It's city-owned property. It's not under the BDA. The industrial park is under our purview. That's just 894 Middle Street at this point.
Well, that's right. We took that property.
Yes,
That's
yes.
right. I forgot.
The city owns
It's
that.
the City of Bristol's property.
Yep. So I just wanted to give you all the update. I'll continue to do that, but since it's the first real update, I put it under new business.
Any questions from commissioners? Thank you. Motion to accept the report on the Farming Street being ordered.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
We have a lot of procedures to follow with community
Excuse me.
development.
I have a motion on the floor to accept your report. You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Go ahead, Debbie.
When the CDBG applications arrive by the deadline in January, we send out notices to anyone who's in a position of making decisions on CDBG grants. And part of the process is to make public disclosure any persons that have a conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest. So I'm going to read these into the record tonight, and they will be part of the record. And reading them doesn't mean that there is a conflict of interest. It just means that there are things that we are going to need to consider before decisions are made. And if it needs to go further, it goes to HUD, and they make a decision. In addition to following the City of Bristol Code of Ordinances regarding conflict of interest procedures, the Bristol Development Authority is required to perform additional measures in cases where BDA staff, BDA board, and committee members, city council members, and any other person or entity has a conflict of interest with respect to allocation of CDBG applicants and funding decisions. The federal provisions apply to any person who is an employee, agent, consultant, officer, or elected official or appointed official of the City of Bristol, or of any designated public agencies or subrecipients that are receiving CDBG funds. Pursuant to Title 24, Section 570.611B, conflicts prohibited of the Code of Federal Regulations, no persons who exercise any functions or responsibilities with respect to CDBG activities or who are in a position to participate in a decision-making process or gain inside information with regard to such activities may obtain a financial interest or benefit from a CDBG-funded activity or have a financial interest, including compensation, in any contract, subcontract, or agreement with respect to a CDBG-assisted activity or with respect to the proceeds of the CDBG-assisted activity, either for themselves or for those whom they have business or immediate family ties during their tenure or for 1 year thereafter. HUD defines family ties as the spouse, parent, including a step-parent, child, including stepchild, brother, sister, including stepbrother or stepsister, grandparent, grandchild, and in-laws of a covered person, regardless of whether the relation is by blood, marriage, or adoption. And 5 individuals submitted forms which I will summarize, and I won't read those 2 paragraphs again. This is from David Perleski. He's a member of the BDA board. He checked off, I do not have a personal financial interest or benefit. He made notes that with respect to BCO, I have represented them in the past, but do not have open responsibilities at this time. The second is United Way of West Central Connecticut, board member. And third, the Bristol Housing Authority, my law firm, represents them. This is from Dawn Ledger, who is a member of the BDA staff, who has checked, I do have a personal financial interest, has done consultant work performed for the Imagination Museum Early Learning Center in 2015. This is from Michael Rivers, who checked off, do have a personal financial interest. The Bristol Boys and Girls Club insurance agent commission received. Bristol Community Organization insurance agent commission received. Bristol Preschool insurance agent commission received. Prudence Crandall, landlord for satellite office in Bristol. They will be moving out April 2016. This is from Anthony D'Amato, a member of the Bristol City Council. He checked, I do have a personal financial interest. Bristol Preschool Child Care Center, tenant at Jennings School Project. And finally, Ellen Zappo Sasu checked, I do have a personal financial interest. I served on the Bristol City Council for the first quarter of fiscal year 2015-16, from July 1st through November 3rd, 2015. I also act as an independent contractor for the Bristol Historical Society, and from time to time we prepare grants on their behalf. For 2015, I received a 1099 form for $1,683. And those are the only disclosures.
The motion be ordered to accept the report that was just read by Debbie.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Debbie. New business by commissioners, starting on my left.
None. None. None.
No.
The chair has none. Old business by staff, program updates, Debbie?
Okay. Justin and I addressed the Board of Finance last week, and so that process is full roll. I just wanted to inform the board of that. And as you know, that our CDBG process is also running full steam ahead, and tonight will be our first public hearing at 6 o'clock.
Any questions or comments? Motion be ordered to accept Debbie's report.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Well, I guess we have to listen to Mr. Malley now.
Well, you guys, you have my report, but let me just highlight a couple of things. First of all, before I forget, I want to talk grants. Sometimes I forget about that stuff, but we've had a pretty active couple of weeks. We received a $50,000 grant for Phase 3 assessment work. This work would not be at 894 Middle Street, but it will be at the Sessions Building on Riverside Avenue. That's another project that we've been working on for years, and we're trying to get to the point where we can essentially have it developed by a private entity. So before you can do that, you've got to assess it and then clean it up, and we're well on our way. We did a Phase 3 years ago, but there were some data gaps that were identified by one of our consultants. So Dawn, great job in getting the additional Phase 3 work for the Sessions Building. Dawn also wrote a grant. This was a while ago. This was sent last March. We submitted a grant to ConDOT for a project run out of Public Works to purchase software that would make routes like rubbish routes and other routes more efficient. So essentially the trucks would save on fuel, save on emissions, and that kind of thing. And we received $60,000 to purchase that software. It'll enable them to figure that out, and so that was a good win as well. For economic development, I want to give you all an update on Startup Bristol, because today, Startup Bristol, just for everybody's benefit, again, this will be quick, but this started about, it was last summer. We had the idea of doing essentially a business plan competition, similar to the kind of stuff that CIAC Kinetic Innovations does. Bristol's known for, I said this today, Bristol's known for a lot of great industries and types of businesses. Of course, high-tech manufacturing, we have ESPN, Bristol Hospital does well. But startup businesses, right? Maybe not, we were not considered a hotbed for that. So we wanted to begin to fix that. So we came up with this idea of Startup Bristol, which basically makes available grant money to the most sort of promising startup companies in the state. The trick with our competition is, yes, we can give you grant money, but you have to locate in Bristol and commit to staying here long term. So we advertised this program last summer, last fall, on a couple of different radio outlets. We ended up getting 35 applicants, entrepreneurs and small businesses, new businesses in the state of Connecticut that were willing to commit to moving to Bristol for the return of some grant funds. Of those 35 applicants, the Startup Bristol Committee whittled that down to about 10 that were invited to submit their full business plans and financials. So the committee had that information. Further narrowed down the number of contestants to four finalists. One of those finalists dropped out, so we were down to 3 finalists today that presented to the committee at a 12 o'clock meeting of the Startup Bristol Committee. We actually had it at Barley Vine. We wanted to get out into the community, into one of the sort of cool establishment, the kind of establishments we want to sort of lure with this type of funding. So the audience, so the 3 companies were a company called Asarazi, which is a really innovative company that bottles organic pure water from the production of maple syrup. There's a way that they do this. A lot of water vapor is emitted through the production of maple syrup, believe it or not. And there's a way to bottle that. They have done very well, received several rounds of funding, literally have celebrity endorsements, are going in the bags for the Academy Awards, I think they were talking about. The manufacturing of the water through the maple process occurs in New York, but they're willing to have their corporate headquarters here, their sales team, marketing team, and some of their warehousing here as well. Bristol's positioned in just the right spot for them to be able to hit the sort of the upper New England area and then down the New York area. So they presented, a company called Bristol Yoga and Cafe presented. They're in Bristol now. They have plans for expansion. The committee liked some of what they had to say. And then a company called Crust Pizza Bar, just a really popular bourbon bar pizza place that's headquartered in Middletown right now that's doing very well. It's even difficult to get a table, frankly. They like what Bristol has to offer, and so they presented as well. The audience, of course, today was the Startup Bristol Committee, but we packed the place with bankers and folks in the financing industry to hear from these companies, to offer maybe other opportunities for lending and funding from the private sector to these folks. So I thought it went pretty well. Good turnout, good presentations from the 3 companies. So now the Startup Bristol Committee is going to meet within the next week in the coming weeks. AMCO, by the way, AMCO is the CNC shop out of Berlin that is interested in purchasing lot number 5. We executed that letter of intent. You all approved it last month. The City Council approved it last week, and it's been executed. So they're working on their site plan. The Industrial Committee will see that shortly. Pods and Uniprop are moving right along. They're looking to get shovels in the ground in April. The only approval really that Uniprop needs on the site is state of Connecticut approval related to traffic, because they're on a state road. Their building's over a certain square footage, so they just need a sign off from ConDOT. But other than that, they're moving right along. GMN USA is going to be doing their ribbon cutting in March, so you all get the invitation for that. They're in, basically, the company's in, they're working out the kinks of being in a new spot, and ribbon cutting slated for next month.
Any questions from commissioners? Motion to accept the report will be in order.
I'll move it.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All business by commissioner, starting on my right.
None.
None. No. The chair has two things. I can't recall the rehab report. That's going to be quarterly, correct?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
That's why it's not there.
Yeah.
And I thought we had talked once before about getting a composite list of how much, I think it's really important, the grants that have been processed through the BDA, to come up with a figure over the last X number of years. I don't know if that was ever talked about.
For residential?
Grants that we have, grants that have been directly resulting from the BDA process that we have to get grants. How many dollars have come into Bristol? I think it's significant.
Oh, grants on Dawn's
Yes,
end.
what Dawn works on,
Yeah.
and prior person.
Robin,
worked on
yeah.
Over the last year. I think it would be very informative to tell people how much money we acquired through
Yeah.
grants.
Yeah, we do it, we tabulate it every year, but I guess we just don't talk about it much. It's tough because, grants are funny in that, you might have a killer year where it's just, you have $1 million of grants. The next year you might not get one, or that opportunity might not be available. So it's tough to compare year over year. But I guarantee you, the positive cash flow has always far outnumbered our efforts and our time spent.
I'm not saying a year to year. I think
Yeah.
it would be good to go back over the last 5 or 10 years and just report
Just
to us.
the
We have
number.
processed through the BDA and received X millions of dollars. I think it's get information
Yeah.
out to the citizens of Bristol, how much
Yeah.
money through our office has been acquired to fund all these things that we've done. That's positive.
Yeah. What we'll do is we put it every year in our budget book, but we'll compile it like that and really have a good number for you.
Thank you. Committee reports. Downtown Committee, do we have a report?
Oh, yeah, so let me give a sort of, and with Dave, with your help, you were there. Nikki and Mayor aren't here tonight, but we had a special meeting of the Downtown Committee in early February, first week of February. We had to address a couple of things regarding our sort of our new responsibility across the street, and now you folks approved the new monthly agenda meeting schedule for that group, so we'll be doing monthly reports. But essentially, I think it was a meeting in two pieces, I think, and Dave, feel free to jump in, but the first piece of the meeting, and I had to step out for a minute, but it was Kurt Barwis attended on behalf of the hospital and gave us an update on where they are, essentially where the hospital is with its project is. It's in the due diligence period for the site. So we've executed a letter of intent to at least begin working with the hospital to try to figure this piece, the property out. So on our side, our attorneys are working on a purchase agreement, right? That would be executed between the two parties, which we do for all of our industrial park sites. So they're sort of working on that. But what is also occurring during this due diligence time is obviously the Bristol Hospital is working with its architects and its its project manager to determine what the site would look like, right? They need to create a site plan that would be the same kind of site plan that we see that goes through the planning commission and other folks. In this case, it would go through the committee and the board. They need to determine what they need for the site, what would work for them. So they have architects on board at this point. By this time, by the downtown committee in March, I think that we'll have at least some preliminary site ideas of what they're looking at. We're working with the hospital and some others to investigate the idea of structured parking, because that's going to be critical for the hospital's project, obviously. We have zoning regulations that sort of determine how parking can be done on our downtown property. We don't want to see a parking out there, so we're working on those. Those are the main projects that we're working on at the moment. But again, they're in the due diligence period. They're investigating the site to see if it will work for them. So that was the first. Anything to add on maybe the first half of the meeting, Dave, on that one?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty obvious and evident that the hospital is really putting the pedal to the metal, and they're doing everything that's required of them in the letter of intent. They're spending money. They're going out there. They've hired a full-time project manager on staff which I think is the appropriate thing to do because of the amount of detail that exists at this part of the program. And they're working with their architects, so we're going to see something really soon.
Yeah.
And the building, I think it's going to be a first-rate building. And Justin talked about structured parking. When you take a look at the development, well, let me go back a step. With the RFP for a planner, we've got the right people in the building, in the room, Mr. Chairman, where the planner, town planner is involved. We're getting professional, third-party, independent professionals to take a look at the overall plan of development, which I think is crucial.
Yeah.
Not only for the hospital, but for the maximizing the value of the entire parcel. And the structured parking that Justin referred to is more than for the hospital. I think it goes way back to the initial plans from Renaissance, that structured parking to maximize the utility of the entire parcel is not only for the hospital piece, but the other pieces as well as they develop. So that's on the radar screen too.
So we received an update on the hospital project, but then we, the second half of the meeting, if you will, we did pass a motion allowing the BDA and the purchasing agent and others to release requests for proposals for the services of sort of a third-party consultancy to be able to lay out, I don't want to say a master plan, but a plan for the site. One of the things that Renaissance did do is create a plan for itself, right? And the way the site would look, where the structured parking would go, where a roadway might go. We don't have them on as a preferred developer anymore, so the way we're going to handle it is the city's going to take a little bit of back a little bit of that control. We know that there's infrastructure that's required on the site, right? You need a roadway. Think about the way we did the Southeast Bristol Business Park. And I wasn't around, Howard, you were around, and we went out and worked with Malone McBroom, I believe it was at the time, and they laid out, we had to lay out a roadway, we had to lay out utilities, we had to determine lots, Yeah, so think of it in that sort of an exercise here. We need to be able to, I sell a lot of the time, right? And I can't just sell a concept. I need sometimes a plan, right? A location to sell to a developer or to a business owner. So that's what we're doing here. We don't have a budget at the moment. We went out to RFP to determine what are we going to be looking at for a budget for this type of service. Our folks, we have experts down in land use and in public works. They're more generalists, and they'll tell you this. This is an urban planning, sort of site planning specific thing. We need to go, that's not me. So we need to go out and retain the services of a consultant, which we do on so many projects, and this is really no different. That being said, one of the things I talked about, so that motion passed. One of the things that I talked about at the downtown committee meeting was, it's just a philosophy, I think, that we need to, maybe when the city went out, and I wasn't really a part of it, when the city went out the first time, the city sort of chose a large developer, which is great. The local, I don't want to say mom and pops, but the local business owners here in Bristol that want to give back to the community, that may be in a location that's not ideal for them, that may have a dream facility that they just have never been able to attain. We need to be talking with those folks too, the smaller entities, about the possibility of building downtown. And that has started, and we've had some good conversations, frankly, with businesses that you would know the name, right? They're well-known names, the kind of names where you'll go anywhere. They don't need to be on Route 6. You'll go downtown for sure to go to those businesses. You know who they are. You know there's a good product there. And they'd be interested in even a mixed-use, development, residential upstairs, but just on a smaller scale, so to speak. Kind of the way we handle the business parks. So all that's occurring, but it's important for us to get this consultant on board to help direct, I think, our sales activities and parking and roadways and all that stuff.
I think you're applying some of the best practices, because I was around when 229 Technology Park, and that's never going to succeed. Every lot sold out. Our business park, not going to succeed. It is succeeding. We will succeed.
It's just a matter, it's a slow burn. It's not going to happen all at once like you might get with a large developer. And I'm not saying we're shutting out large developers by any means, but we're just going to do it the right way and do it the way we know how and see what happens.
Any questions, commissioners?
Is the public allowed to just jump in and ask a quick question? Just,
Just come to the podium.
No. Well, yeah, from the podium.
hey, I appreciate that.
Can you talk about the consultant?
Would you
that's-
please, for the record, you have to give your name and address.
Sure, absolutely. Frank Kramer, Bristol, Connecticut, 40 Crescent Drive. That's the place on the left-hand side rather than the right. Justin,
Yeah.
the consultant you were talking about just now, which consultant were you talking about that's doing site planning and
Well, they're
analysis?
not doing it yet. We've released a competitive RFP to retain the service, or to at least investigate the idea of retaining the services, so we don't have one on board.
Okay, you're not making any reference to Malone and McBroom?
No, the reference I made to Malone and McBroom is they did some of this work for our business park
Business
years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have they started the analysis of the site planning, site study for the synthetic turf fields yet? Do you know?
I don't know. That's not part
That's
of the
not
meeting.
germane to the
Yeah.
BDA. That's not in our
Yeah.
purview, so
Okay.
we can't
Not sure.
respond to that.
Not sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought you might know just offhand, that's all. It's
Okay.
a citizen to a citizen.
Thank you.
But,
For instance, that's all.
Frank, get with me after, and during the workday, I could figure out that answer for you.
Thank you so much.
Motion be in order to accept the downtown committee report.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The marketing committee, unfortunately, I was
Okay.
ill
Yeah.
and was unable to attend that meeting. Were you there, Justin?
I was for a part of it. I had to step out, but basically we received, Mark was ill too. It was a snow day, basically. But we received an update from Mark on his numbers for the hits on All Heart, that they keep going up. They're higher than the committee anticipated, frankly. But I think the majority of the discussion of the meeting was around the budget, so I can give you an update on that. The marketing budget it doesn't come out of the BDA budget. It's sort of its own separate entity. If you remember, the marketing project is a collaboration between the city and the Chamber of Commerce. It's a 50-50 funding situation. In years past, so the current year, the marketing budget is $140,000, split 50-50, 70 and 70. Those funds come from these mayor's economic development pool of funds that are often used for grants and other activities that we do. Startup Bristol. Last Wednesday we went to Board of Finance. We pitched the BDA's budget request, but I also had the opportunity to pitch the marketing for next year, the budget request. The chamber and the committee are interested in a budget of $100,000 each side. So it's not 70 and 70, but 100. Make sure I get that right. So I had to explain, and Mark was here. Mark explained to the Board of Finance why that's necessary. Mark's swamped. Mark has no dedicated full-timers under him. Mark, frankly, it's not a good investment to have Mark as the marketing manager working on data entry and routine activities. We need to be paying Mark for the larger ideas, the events, the website, the higher level website stuff. So that pitch was made to the Board of Finance. I don't have any, they don't make a decision at those budget hearings, but I think it was pretty well received.
Well, that was in 3 years to get to where we are, and it's extremely successful in my opinion, having been part of that from day one.
Yeah.
The product that we ended up with is just tremendous.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a big benefit to the city of Bristol because of that. Any questions?
Can I ask a question regarding the
No.
update?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You're welcome.
Justin, can I ask you a question on
Yeah.
the economic update?
Yeah,
If you're through with the marketing committee?
I am.
One of the items you list here is something I'm really interested in is you mentioned that you're working closely with adult education.
Oh, yeah?
And, I'm a new commissioner here, so you might have to, for everybody else here to educate me, but
So this is a cool project.
can I ask you specifically? Because
Yeah.
as you speak, I know Mike and I are involved in Bristol Business Education Foundation. And this is a huge, or a potential, a program with huge potential in it. And I was wondering, one of the things we talked about last month was the buckets of financing or monies we have available to us. And I think someone asked a question about whether it's available for education funding and anything.
Yeah.
Or if there's something out there that we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
When you address this, can you also address the funding that we get as the BDA gets?
Well, and Deb can jump in. Deb did a great job with that. But a question, first of all, the question is brought up about the funding that we get. It was CDBG, the question regarding CDBG funds. And would funding be available for certain types of workforce programs?
Calvin Brown, I think, brought that.
I just like the way Deb answered it so much, I'm just going to give it right to her. She's the expert too.
We're limited to 15% of our annual allocation from HUD for public service programs, and that would be considered a public service program to work with folks on education and training. And so the competition basically is between helping 8 people go through an education and training program versus 100 people in emergency shelter during the year, hundreds of people at a soup kitchen, a food pantry, at-risk youth at Cambridge Park. So that's the reason why it falls a little bit to the bottom. I mean, it's in there. It's definitely an eligible activity, and it's in context. It's
But that's the
considered in context.
CDBG block grant
Yeah.
monies. Are there other programs
So,
that we could avail ourselves to?
So Dawn looks into all sorts of different types of grant programs, and frankly, I've been working with Dawn on this partnership with adult education. So we're always looking at any outside grant opportunities or a circle around workforce development. It's got to be a collaboration between us and the Board of Ed, frankly. But that particular program, first of all, Larry Covino at Adult Ed, I love the guy. I mean, we're very similar in some ways. But he has a clear affinity for high-tech manufacturing training. To me, that's so critical. Bristol is able to attract manufacturing businesses, literally, because of our workforce. The minute we lose that, as folks retire, the thing is, as these skilled older workers retire, we need to backfill with the younger folks. And if we can't, then we lose our competitive advantage, and we're just like anybody else. So it's incredibly important to this community and to this office to get more young folks, but not even young, just more folks interested in high-tech manufacturing as a career. That's what Larry shares, and he's doing some great projects down there, like the one we talked about. So we're going to continue to look for grant funds outside that Dawn could apply for, and we'll continue to support what Larry's doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just a comment, my dad was a teacher, so they can't give anybody a promotion because they don't have people to backfill the spaces, because no one's coming into the industry, so that's...
Yeah, but if we go back to our technical school, some of the graduates there actually have jobs when they come out. If they have workplace, they actually work there and they get a job coming out of there. That's a tremendous asset the city of Bristol has, that school.
Yeah, I mean, we were posting job openings, from when manufacturers have a job opening now. We get on Kristen gets on our Facebook page, we post on the website, just these little things around employment, because frankly, that's the concern of manufacturers today. They have the work, it's coming back from overseas, they have access to great incentive programs for equipment like we have, right? And to grow the employment base, finding employees is important to them. And so if manufacturers have a concern, that becomes our concern. So we'll look to continue and even seek out the third-party grant opportunities.
And we do have a leg up with our Goodwin Technical School. It gives us a leg up.
Yeah, Bristol Tech,
Bristol Tech.
Ben Russell up there, we're very close, and he has a pipeline for manufacturers here.
I think we need to go back to, we need a motion to accept the marketing committee report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
So the CDBG meeting, 6 o'clock.
40 years, I should.
I
don't put the microphone in front of the cameras anymore because they know people are using them for video. Video cameras with a microphone on it start at like $250, $300. That's really ideally what I need. The proper thing. Because this shuts off every 30 minutes. Because they government regulations make people buy video cameras.
You have a choice of
Buy another camera like that for like $80 or $90. That way, I don't have my son's camera.
So, the camera has more longevity when it comes to video. Your son's camera.